What's up? It's your boy Humble Dad back with another good edition of Humble Dad Podcast. And we're going to keep it real as always. And the goal for this particular episode is to help men grow in faith, family, and fatherhood. You feel me? We're going to have some challenges for you today to become better at what it is that you're doing and need to be doing. All right. So today we're going to be diving into a powerful idea. I just got off the phone, basically, if you will, with my dude Lost in Translation, came up with this topic. If men would raise the bar, women would change. And so we'll talk about it and see what he thinks. Now, that statement might seem kind of controversial, but stay with us. This isn't about blaming women, although there may be some blaming on women. This is about calling men higher. Because when we lead with integrity, love, and strength, everything around us begins to shift. So we'll be exploring this from both a secular and biblical perspective, talking about dating, marriage, responsibility, masculinity, and what happens when men stop settling for average and start living with intention. So here's a proposition. If you're a man who wants to lead better or a woman who's been waiting for men to show up differently, this conversation is for you. We're going to keep it honest, practical, and centered in truth. And so before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel because we believe iron sharpens iron and somebody in your circle needs to hear this. So here we go. Let's listen to this video, also known as the intro.
The boy is dangerous.
Bad feeling about this.
You don't seem to understand something.
The thing that I like most about being a dad is that I see that I'm about to impact the world. Yes, sir. Hey, we back and we just gonna bring him up and we're gonna talk. It's Lost in Translation in the building. What's up, homie?
Come on inside and get yourself something cool to drink.
Might as well. How you been, bro?
What's happening, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, Doc. Listen, to jump on the live with you last minute, bro, it got to be something good, right?
Of course. You know how we do it, man.
How we do it. Like that, I remember that day that everything didn't work out too well, but it worked out very well. You feel me?
It always work out to his favor, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Matter of fact, we learned some stuff and we got some good shows out of it too, man, as a result of it.
That's a fact. And then when we was behind stage, and nothing, the things wasn't working or whatever, you got me to thinking. And so bringing it to this particular point of just one-on-one and just having a conversation about whatever topic we land on has really been helpful for me as an individual. So appreciate you for that.
Now, before we get started, I'm going to ask you a question. What have you learned since you changed the format? I would really want to hear this.
What I learned from the format is that a lot of things that need to be changed start with me. I don't have to be passive. I don't have to worry about what other people are going to assume or think. And one of the things that I had thought was that you guys would feel some type of way, right? But then if I felt led to move forward, then I should do that, but make sure that I present it to you all in a very professional way to let y'all know it wasn't anything about you all. It was just more so about trying to move forward with the branding. And of course, you're all understood because that's what you all do, And the other thing that I've learned by doing this is I've been able to deep dive individuals' perspective. And by deep diving their perspectives, I've been able to have insight on other people. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it's taught me. So that's a really good question. I didn't think about that until so hey, this is what we do, bro. So I appreciate it. So we're gonna dive right into it. So what made you want to have the particular topic about raising the bar?
You know what? That's a great question. As you know, in our profession, we have different conversations. And as a professional, what we do is we want to make sure that we solve a problem. You know what I mean? To make sure we get to it. We just don't want to keep spinning our wheels. So what I did was I started listening to the conversations that we're having. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if we were just a little bit better, we wouldn't have this problem. You know, if men accepted, you know, where they are in life and say, hey, you know what, I can do just a little bit better, they would eliminate some of the problems that they were having in their lives. And I started listening to some of the conversations some of the women were having. I'm thinking to myself, if you raise the bar just a little bit, then you probably wouldn't have the problems that you have, you know? And I also thought about it too, as far as a community's aspect. Everything doesn't have to be perfect for you to be just a little bit better. You know, you can just be a little bit better every single day. And I think that makes a difference. And I think everybody thinks that they have to arrive at the end point right away. You know, if they don't, then they're not a success. Sometimes success is unseen. Like the situation we had first before we started doing this, the one-on-one, you know, the one-on-one series, you know what I'm saying? And out of that conversation was a conversation that nobody got a chance to see. But as a result of it, greatness came from it because you were able to listen to people's conversations a little bit deeper and to get a little bit more understanding. And from that, it hones us to ask better questions, which in essence makes us better when we have these conversations in good faith.
That's what's up. Yeah, it definitely raised my level of intention as it relates to wanting to know more about people and not just trying to cover a topic, right? So, from your perspective, what does raising the bar mean or look like?
Well, to me, I think raising the bar means improving yourself and having a greater understanding of yourself and your place in the world. There are a lot of things, man, about this world that we don't understand. And there's also a lot of things about us that we don't understand. And the thing about it is we waste a lot of time thinking about stuff that may or may not even happen. You know what I mean? Think about how many subjects there are to cover in the world. The world is a huge library full of everything. And then on top of that, we choose to dabble in the minors instead of majoring in the majors. You see what I'm saying? Think about it. There's things like other languages you could learn. Think how important that would be to communication between countries and learning each other's cultures. Think about the universal language, music. It comes in different forms. We can learn how to use that to heal. You know, there's this thing called somatics, where people actually use harmonics to heal people. There's this sister who was talking about eradicating cancer using sound. I thought that was fascinating. So my whole thing is this: there's a whole world full of information that if we just tapped into ourselves, say, yes, I can do this. And then we can actually start to meet our needs by focusing on a world of information to figure out exactly what we're good at. We would in turn make the world a better place instead of minoring in the little stuff that bothers us, our little insecurities. It's because we never learn how to address them. And if we address those insecurities, it keeps us from reaching our full potential. And that's what I mean by raising the bar.
Wow. That's impressive because I did not think in the aspect of raising the bar to say I need to do better work in myself when I first initially heard you say it. However, I think it may have been Zig Ziglar as well. If you desire to have people be different, then you be different. If you meaning that you should change an aspect of yourself if you want to see change. I think there's a statement out there that says, if you want to see change, then be changed, right? So that's why I can see what it is that you're saying by raising the bar from the perspective of yourself. So if I want to be a better podcaster, if I want to be a better interviewer, then I can't blame the people that I'm interviewing to say that they're bad interviewees. I could, but that puts the pressure or the onus on them, and it limits the opportunities for me to be better, right? Or if I'm needing to be a better father, a better husband, a better friend, whatever the case may be, looking inward, meaning holding myself accountable to how people may respond to me or how I may respond to others. It provides me an opportunity to be more like Christ, really, when you boil it all down to it. So that's really good. So my question to that is, when have you ever seen, or have you seen some examples in your life or even community where male leadership or lack of it directly affects women's choices or standards?
Oh man, I can give you plenty of examples, man.
Okay.
In our family, in our neighborhood, in our community. Growing up, I'm pretty old, so I've got a great, vast knowledge of experience that I can draw from. And as a little boy, one thing that I noticed is that when the men wore suits, the women wanted to compliment them. They wanted to dress and look as well, because they don't want their man to look better than them. You see what I'm saying? So guys would shine their shoes up, make sure they had a crease in the pants, make sure the suit was clean. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Make sure they smell good. They had a certain vernacular. If you remember back in the day, guys had a vocabulary on them, When they used to talk, they used to be like, come in, baby, let me rap a taste to you. You know what I'm saying? And they would be able to hold a conversation with the regular everyday man in the barbershop and turn right around and get in the pulpit and articulate why you should be a better person. Those same people would also go down to City Hall and talk to people who don't look like them and still have a conversation. So the ability to go from walking with the common man to also walking with the kings is still a need that needs to be addressed. And we should be flexible enough to do that. You know what I mean? Because each area you should be proficient in. And the best way for you to do that is to spend a lot of time in each one. So what happens is when you're called upon to be a leader, you can actually express what you heard from the common everyday man and explain that to the ones in charge and say, hey, look, this is what they mean. And it helps you become a better leader. And when you become a better leader, then people trust you more. And we already know that most relationships work best when trust is at the forefront, when trust is the cornerstone. And the only way for you to do trust is to be able to listen, to be a better listener, and to articulate what you heard to somebody else who doesn't understand.
That's good. So you're saying that if I know you at the last part, you said if I listen well, then I should be able to articulate well to say, listen, this is what I heard you say. And from what it is that I heard you say, this is what I need to be doing in order to make sure that we don't cross this situation again, or we improve from this situation. Then I also heard you before when you said in the beginning, where if men would, for example, change their dress code, if it was a mandate that men in the men code, right, that we make sure that we dress well, then based upon us dressing well, then women would change how they dress. And that means that there will be, it sounds like you're saying that men, if you change your action, she'll change her action. And that's a part of the raising the bar in which you're talking about. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Did I listen well and articulate that?
Absolutely correct. That is perfect. And I'm going to tell you the reason why is because people want to be around winners. And the question is, how do winners stand out?
That's a great
They carry
question.
themselves. Yeah.
How do winners stand out? So what does a man look like who's winning?
Someone who I put it to like someone who's able to listen to other people and not get bothered by what they say.
Really?
Someone who can actually take their ego, move it to the side, and say, hey, let me listen to your problem. Let's solve this together. in your mind, what does success look like? Because you're helping them solve their own problem. You're not solving it for them.
Mm.
It's a teamwork thing. And in order for that to work, you need to be able to listen to what they're saying and gain clarity. And you also need to know what success looks like to that person. Think about it. There's no worse feeling than you to go out and do something for somebody else and you think you did it the right way. And they were like, no, that ain't what I'm talking about. That's a waste of your time and their expectations.
That happened with my kid.
Think about it.
That's crazy. So, do you think women lower their standards when men don't lead well?
I
And
think
why?
they do. I think they do. And I'm gonna tell you why they do that. It's for security. It's for security. It's better to have something than to have nothing at all.
It's better to have something than
And to
nothing.
have nothing at all.
We're talking about relationships, though.
Yeah. Think
Marriage.
about it. A lot of women settle, man, because they couldn't get or they think they couldn't deserve or get the person they really wanted. Really.
Or what could it be that the person that they really wanted was not actually the person that they needed?
You're right.
Is that possible?
Yeah, a lot of people miss their calling, man. Think about it like this, HD. When we had these conversations, most people all in their mind, they have this idea of what the successful man looks like. It's the guy with the 3-piece suit, the CEO, the guy that's making 6-7 figures. They can point to that guy and say that guy's a success. Okay.
All right.
Well, the thing about it is there's success along the way from the top all the way down to the bottom. There's success in between. And the thing about it is nobody understands that there's success needed at each and every level. You know, don't you think the garbage man needs a good wife? Just
Yes.
like the CEO
Right.
needs a good wife. You know, there's a lot of guys in between who needs good wives and who's good parents, because that is the infrastructure that holds up our society. We can't put too much weight on one end and not on the other. It'll break. Think about it. If we concentrated more on hood culture, then we would have a culture of people who don't have moral standards or any type of moral direction, who can build anything. Anybody can't come to them for anything at all. It becomes a nuisance. Then on top of that, if you go to another end, the other end of the spectrum, if everybody is a CEO, then how is stuff going to get fixed? No plumbing, no electrical, no arts, no humanity, nothing that actually pushes us forward to be the best versions of ourselves. So that's the reason why we have to make sure that we understand that there's a healthy understanding of where winning lies. There's winning lying between one end and the other. The thing about it is people have to understand that you have to pick a place. And a lot of people have been missing each other because they've been misplaced, because they think they should be somewhere else when they should be somewhere else.
Wow. Okay. So, well, if I'm hearing this correctly, we haven't, because I'm thinking that men need to, like you said, educate themselves, and it doesn't mean that it's in the school, but reading, getting around other men that are seeking productivity or are being productive, men who hold each other accountable. You want to have a peer group that is moving in a direction that's going to be helpful to the community. And so but at the same time, that doesn't always mean that that's going to be the person that makes a lot of money or that has a lot of status.
Correct.
Right? That could be anybody that is moving in a productive manner to make sure that their home is doing well, outside their home is doing well, and even further on. That reminds me of the scripture where it talks about, well, he wants us to disciple individuals, but he also wants us to take care of our where we are at that time. And then he wants us to branch out to even other parts and even to the edges of the world. Right.
Right.
So I think, my question to you then is, why do you believe, I don't know if you believe it, I think I do though, Why do you why do you why do you believe that women are not, they only want a certain part of the man, which is the financial aspect, as opposed to, let me see if this such and such worker, blue collar worker, has good character, good morals, integrity, and that he will be faithful and take care of you in all the aspects that you want to. But the first initial seems to be, uh, survival is based upon the finances and not the parts that the man can definitely change right now.
It depends on each person is different. Okay. I've had exposure to both sets of women who use wisdom to find their husbands, and there's also women who choose survival mechanism to choose their mates. And all I have to do is look at the results. All I have to do is look at the fruit. What did these people bear that these people didn't? You know, those women who use wisdom had to get better so they can understand the nature of their particular man and who's leading that man. You know, if a man is being led by God, he needs a different type of nurturer. He needs someone who understands, someone who actually moves when God says moves, and she has to be okay with that. And sometimes that looks uncomfortable. Sometimes that doesn't look like glamorous. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes that stuff doesn't look fruitful. But if a man knows God, he knows that he does not reap in the same season that he sows. You know, that is where faith comes in. That is where faith comes in. Now, look at the other side. The people on the other side who use survival, they try to reap in the same season that they sow. And what they do is they cut off their season in their future to reap in the season that they're in right now. They don't set aside seeds for the future to grow their family tree like the other side did. Two different temperaments. They want the same, but how they go about it is different.
Man, that is good. It's a matter of, you know, if you look at it from the farming perspective, if you look at it from, you know, educational standpoint, if you look at it from trying to build from the ground up, all of it is a process. The microwave kind of set us back in the aspect of wanting it now. The remote was supposed to be a very good invention, but it set us back in this form of we got to have it now. High speed internet changed the perspective of we got to have it now. You have Burger King that says you can have it your way, right? And that's the things that you're referring to kind of lean to the perspective of that people really believe that if it doesn't work right now, then it will never work.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, well, as I've seen it in my own life, that everything takes time. There are some people that are one hit wonders and then they never recover from that, and they only stay in that one hit wonder space, and they don't even make another hit, right? And then there are other people that, you know, they had to grind until they became who it is that they are, and then they're still evolving and will become better. And so I would say that is, as the Bible says, that's a sanctification process where you're going to have the trials and errors. But in the trials and error, that's the other thing that I was learning as well, is that where I'm at now, I should be able to be okay because I've always been okay. Whether it was, you know, having my car wreck when I was 19, thank God I survived that, to the point of where I thought I was going to be out of college, but God made a way there. Even to the point of, you know, my late wife, she only had one ovary but had 4 kids, right? Or to the point that I lost my wife, and then God brought me somebody else, right? So and then it's financial. I didn't do well for a little bit, and then it came to a point where just being very steady and constant, where I'm not a rich guy, but I'm by no means poor, right? You know, I would say that I'm in the middle class literally. You know what I'm saying? I'm in the more and above average, and so I'm thankful for that. So that makes sense. People that are listening, appreciate the process, because when you don't appreciate the process, you're going to pretty much hate yourself almost all the time, because you're aiming for you're thinking about the goal and not appreciating where you currently are. Bible talks about that, right? Be content in where you are. Yeah, to be content to in where you are. I think that's a good space. I would ask the question: in what ways can men challenge each other to live at a higher standard without shaming?
They should celebrate the victories along the way, man. There's a certain perfection in the journey. It's kind of like when you learn math. The
Okay.
first thing they teach you is addition, you know, then they teach you subtraction, then they teach you multiplication, then they teach you division, you know.
Yeah.
Those are basically the foundations of math.
That's a fact.
Yeah. And then after that, you can get creative. You can start putting in numbers and letters that represent numbers and try to figure out exactly, well, what does this mean? Algebra, calculus, you know?
Yeah.
Those are the fancy versions of math. But if we don't get down to the basics, we don't celebrate the basics, then how can we appreciate when math really gets hard, you know? The beauty comes in when you prepare yourself, when you've done the basic stuff. So therefore, when the hard stuff arrives and you can't see your way out, you can always rely on your fundamentals.
Mm.
You can always rely on your fundamentals. I think men need to get better at being well at fundamentals. Saying thank you, appreciate you, you're welcome. Is there anything I can do for you? You know, those type of things, the basics. You know what I mean? How are you today? Really? Can I sit down and talk to you for a minute? Those are the basics.
That is outstanding. That is outstanding, because I think that has brought me, specifically me, to a very good place of how people see me to some degree, right? Like it's twofold, right? I do have the thank you, I appreciate you. Um, what can I do for you? What is it that I even asked my kids? I said, what is it that you need from me today, this week? I asked my wife that this week as well. And then at the same time, I'm gonna just be transparent with the audience. I had received an incredible blessing by closing on a house um, a week and a half ago, right? Almost 2 weeks ago. And I did not do a good job of appreciating the blessing that God gave me. And it did not sit well with me. And so I had contacted one of my homies, and he told me, he held me accountable. He said, listen, bro, you definitely need to appreciate the times that you have a victory. You need to appreciate the times that you have a victory, because you don't know the next time that you're going to get one. So why not celebrate it? And what's crazy is my wife had helped me celebrate it that particular day. However, all I could think about is how many bills I'm gonna have to pay with this. Right? As opposed to saying, thank God that I have this additional funds to pay for this. Right. And also I think what is missing from men is where is the standard? Who is the standard? And for some reason, individuals are not able to see that these entertainers, some of these pastors, and in between are not the standard. But for me, it's the Bible. Like, the Bible is the standard if you want to know what leadership looks like, right? When Jesus was on earth and when he was not on earth, there are all types of leaders that you can look to. Me and Miss Taken was talking about it last week, about how, or this week actually, about how she wasn't really sure about whether any men scriptures about how to be a better man or husband or something to that.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay,
That-
yeah, that's right. That's right. The Proverbs 31 man, if you will, right? And I remember communicating to her. I think I want to say that I talked to her about that there are all types of scriptures and examples of men having to take leadership and make sure that they take care of their wives and their kids and their community, right? So I think that if more men, I'm gonna ask you this question: if more men would get into the Bible, I think that they will see a lot of their character and integrity and morals change. What do you say to the men that say, "I think I would prefer going to Islam"?
I would tell them start with Christ first.
Really?
Yeah, because you got to have a blueprint. You got to have something. You got to have a standard. You know what I mean? I told the guys on the podcast the other day, and they were talking about how people love to come for Christians. You know what I told them? I said people love to, come after the original.
That is a bar. That is a bar.
People love to come after the original.
They do.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. And I told them if you read it long enough, you'll find out why. Because the original requires you to be better. The original requires you to be patient. The original requires you to be kind, to be long-suffering. There's a lot of things that the original requires you to do. And the thing about it is that you also have a choice whether you want to do them or not.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that it's that the meeting of the choice in the mind is where the decision is made. And if you don't have a track record, like you had a track record of your success, then you wouldn't know that God would always be there for you.
Mm.
He said, I will always be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you.
That's what they say.
Yeah. So that's why I tell people all the time, man, don't worry about where your provision is going to come from, because he may change where that comes from. Even in the Bible, he said, I commanded a raven to feed you there. Yeah. Because sometimes your provision will dry up where you at. He'll call you to move.
Out of nowhere, my dude.
Yes. I commanded your raven to feed you there.
Yeah.
And then you know what I tell people, man, God's love language is obedience. It really is. He said, if you love me, you keep my commandments.
Come on, Lost.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Delayed obedience is disobedience.
It's a fact. Man, God, please help me to not delay in my obedience. Make sure that I am very well aware of when you want me to move, for sure. What do you think? What happens when men lead like Christ in their homes and in their communities?
I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. It's going to come back tenfold. It's going to rub off. I'm going to tell you why. Because if you make it a standard to be the best that you can be, then the people around you are going to do the exact same thing. And what's going to happen is people are going to surprise you. People are going to come back and tell you, hey, I thank you for what you've done for me. They're going to come back and do things for you. They'll give you blessings that you didn't count on. Like I say, a rising tide raises all ships. That's for real, man. So when you improve the life of everybody around you, you in essence level up yourself and you glorify God because you did it the way he told you to do it. And then when you do get raised up, you make sure you get a proper credit. Cite your sources and give the proper credit. And they appreciate that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Cite your source, my God.
That's right.
That is so dope, bro. That is so dope. Do you really believe? Matter of fact, I got it for you. I'm gonna play this clip and then I'm gonna ask you a question after I play this clip. Here we go.
A woman that doesn't have to carry you will almost find you toxic. There's something wrong with you if I ain't got to carry you, because I'm so used to carrying things. What do you do when What do you do when healing feels like toxicity and toxicity feels like healing? You got more work to do. And that's why you're single, sir. Again, it's because, Jay, you're not one that needs to be carried. You are the carrier. And we're dealing with a generation of women who are unfamiliar with Christ-like love. They like Judas love. They like to be kissed and betrayed. That makes them comfortable. And you come like Christ, where I'll let you kill me so that you could be better for you.
I'm ripping up these cars, man, because this bro.
That's what we're dealing with today, bro. That's why I'll never leave my wife.
Yeah, he told the truth, man.
Man, when I saw that, let me see if my internet is acting up. Lost, you there?
I'm here, man.
Or is it me? Let me close some of this.
Just close the tab out. Using a little bit of resources.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There we go.
There we go. Man, did you get to see it?
Yeah, that
Did
was
you-
a bar, man.
Okay. I had literally I have listened to it the other day. I hope people I couldn't get it fast enough to say where it came from. I had downloaded it because I wanted to hear your perspective on what he said. But as you give your perspective, I'm gonna see if I can find it because I want to give them credit. Go ahead, bro.
You know what? He's absolutely correct. When you have an appetite for toxicity, anything outside of that is foreign to you, and you don't know how to handle it. The other day, I had to come to the realization that the woman that I wanted will never be ready for me. She'll never be ready, you know, because that type of person only relates to toxicity. You know, no matter how you show up, you can do everything right. You can say the right things. If that person doesn't come from a background or appreciates what good looks like, then that's going to be an issue. So sometimes you have to dust your shoes off, man, and get it on down the road, you know, and the guy was absolutely correct. And you can tell because women who've actually been raised on leadership, on love, they act differently when it comes to love. They appreciate it. You know, they'll sing songs about it. I was watching TikTok the other day, and this lady was edifying her husband. She was like, you know, it's getting, you know, close to Father's Day. And she put up a video about, you know, her husband was a good daddy. You know, he was taking the daughter to get presents, daddy, and sick daddy and homework daddy, you know what I'm saying? And she says she married him because he was a good daddy, you know, and knowing her and where she comes from, her father was a good father. So when it came down to finding a good father for her children, prospective children, she knew exactly what to look for. She knew what qualifies for her family and what doesn't, you know? So that's the main reason why I thought about it. I was like, you know what? In order for us to change how people view positive behavior, is that we got to put it out there a little bit more, you know? We got to raise the bar, man. We definitely got to raise the bar.
I was trying to find it. Man, I couldn't find it, but it's on Instagram. And I thought that it was very interesting because if men are changing, which that guy is saying that he's changing, right? Man, it's just right on par because I did not know we was going to talk about this today, right? If men are changing to be more Christ-like, which is women are saying that they want a guy of a certain caliber as it relates to finances. However, if the guy is if he has finances and he's changing to be more Christ-like, he is going to raise the bar automatically.
Absolutely.
Requirements for you, ma'am, are going to be where you're Christ-like because of the not wanting to be unequally yoked. right? That unequally yoked, for those that don't know, was a conversation about and trying to explain where there are two oxen that are connected by a yoke, and that both of them are able to go in the same direction and work together to build together, to I would say, to plow the field together. That's what that illustration was for. Because if there is one that is not being able to be submissive to the one that is in charge of leading, right, then it's going to be a very troublesome time, right? The scripture also says that for his yoke is easy and his burden is light, saying that, listen, Christ wants you to walk with him and allow him to lead. And if you allow him to lead and be submissive to him, then you will get more things than you could ever imagine. It's saying that it works with a true leader as from a biblical perspective. That if you are submissive to a man that is submissive to God, then you are going to obtain a lot of favor from God and that man, in my estimation. Well, I'm not saying he's going to be perfect. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he will be convicted by not following Christ. And then if he is not honoring you, he will also be convicted and want to make sure that he doesn't continue to live in that way. So what that guy is experiencing, and I've heard a couple other guys, not a lot, but a couple other guys experience that I am changing, and because I'm changing, my pool of women is dwindled. As you just said, the woman that I want, she's not ready for me, and that can also work on the opposite end as well. I think Philip Mitchell was communicating on Hardly Initiated when he was talking to the guys about how that woman that is saying that she's struggling to find a guy, and because she has now raised her bar as it relates to her faith in Christ and her demeanor in Christ. And he says, yes, you're going to have to hold on a little longer, because there are men out here that are not trying to live for Christ. And there are women out here that are not living for Christ. So you're going to have to, men and women of God, you're going to have a different disposition in your wait time sometimes. And that's just a part of being a follower of Christ, that everything doesn't work out right now, but it works out when it needs to. So yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on, do you believe that women would change? Well, I'm gonna ask a percentage, because that all thing. So if 25% of men would change their perspective as it relates to a biblical perspective and how they lead, what percentage of women do you believe would change alongside that in your thought process?
About 50%.
Double.
Yeah, double.
Explain.
Putting it like this, the majority of women want the top, 10%? Usually about 80-20, that type of thing. Well, if there were 25% more men, then of course, you would have more women want to do that. Now, also what I learned is that a lot of people are hard-headed, man. Some people, no matter what you say, they're not going to move on first mover advantage. Any type of technology, we like to talk about first mover advantage. There are some people who move at the beginning of the technology. Usually we call that first mover advantage. Usually about the first, maybe 1-2% early adopters get on board. Then after that, usually takes about 10 years for the next 10% to get on. And then usually it takes about another 10 years for the next half to come on. And then after that, it usually take about another 20 years for the back end to come on. And then you got some people in the back end who never going to see it. So that's just how it is. So that's the reason why I came up with 50%, because that makes sense. Because what happens is you got what's in that 50% is the 50% who says, you know what, I'll see how you do, and then once they see it, they're like, oh, it does work, then I'll move. That group is actually bigger than people realize, because people want to be a part of success. And if they see that there's a group of guys that wants to be successful, they'll say, you know what, if I want to be a part of that, yes, I better move my feet. That's real talk.
That's good, bro. I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense because I think God just had a particular favor on me because he has favor on others, but as it relates to being able to find somebody, I think he just had a different favor on me than others. Not, I don't know why. I can't, of course, how would I know why? But I know that when I gave all credit to him and asked him to send me somebody, um, in my first marriage as well as and as this one, I got to give it credit to him. I gotta give the credit to him. If it had not been for him, then I definitely would lead differently with my children. Even though I'm pretty tough on them, and there are some times where I have to go back and apologize because my flesh rises up because I get frustrated with some of the conversations that I have to repeat. But then I look and I say, okay, well, God, there's some things that He has to repeat to me, and how has He been a father to me, and was I a father to them like He would be a father to me, you know? And the same thing as it relates to Christ being the head of the church and being the husband, if you will, to the church. And I say to myself, am I being the Jesus? Am I leading with the Holy Spirit? Am I being a follower of God that He would be proud of in the realm of being a husband, even when I may not like something she said or did? Am I able to still remain who He would be to me? Right. And that part, that's another part that I've also learned is that I'm in charge of how I respond. I'm in charge of the words that I say. I'm in charge of my responsibilities. Nobody else is. And so if I could just focus on me and how I become better, as you said, the tide rises and it raises all that's on the waters, right? This has been dope. This is my, like I was telling you, this is my weekend anniversary, but my wife was at work, so I wanted to jump on here with you because I didn't know when when there would be a time to get it in because we both get busy sometimes,
Absolutely.
all the time, really. But I'm glad that I'm able to have the one-on-one with you because the time that I've spent with you on panels is good, but like just talking to you one-on-one, there's a totally different insight that I gain and allow myself to also get better from hearing what it is that you said. So I am going to be working on myself constantly and making sure that the number one thing that you said that resonated with me is that to celebrate my victories and also celebrate my brother's victories, right? So
Absolutely.
shout out to my brothers that are doing the do. Who we got? We got Lost in Translation doing his thing. You got my dude Prototype doing his thing in the podcast realm, but also being I got to see him be a husband in real time. My partner that just had a baby, Dez, the first time father, Miracle Baby. Shout out to him. He's excited. I haven't even talked to him in a while just because I know him being a dad is a lot.
You know what? Here's the thing. What we miss out, man, on being dads. Sometimes we get so excited about being a dad. Sometimes we let that excitement slip when it comes to our responsibility. So whenever you have a new child, make sure you update your insurance, that type of thing. You know what I mean? We want to make sure we stay on top of that. We want to make sure we protect our families. That's one of the roles that we have as men, is to make sure that we, stay vigilant against whatever may come.
That's dope, bro. And so before we get out of here, what do you want to tell the people, bro?
Here's the thing. What I want to tell people is always be getting better, Always listen to what other people are telling you. Always be aware of yourself. Also be aware of how you feel in that particular moment. Remember, God will never leave you nor forsake you. Make sure that you take care of those around you and make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure you celebrate those around you. Make sure you celebrate those little victories that nobody else knows about. Only you and God knows. So make sure you tell them thank you. Humble Dad, as always, sir, it has been a pleasure. And I want to thank you for allowing me to come in and have this conversation. And who never knows, man, sometimes these conversations births great topics later on. It's just a matter of time when somebody comes back and they'll pull this up one day and they'll be like, man, I remember that show. It was a lot of good gems that came out of that. And I just want to make sure that we're facilitators of doing what's right and what's good in the world. You know, sometimes we need to be a lighthouse in the dark for people who can't see. And I don't mind leaving the light on, man, because somebody left the light on for me. As always, thank you, Humble Dad, for allowing me to be here today, sir.
Hey, absolutely, bro. It's been a pleasure and an honor as always. Hey, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Also, for those that are looking for a house to live in, to rent, don't forget to holler at me, your boy, Dr. Elijah Glenn, aka Humble Dad. I'm in Texas. So anywhere in Texas, whatever it is that you need as it relates to your real estate needs, holler at your boy. Until next time, we out here. Deuces.
The boy is dangerous.
Bad feeling about this.
You don't seem to understand something.
The thing that I like most about being a dad is that I see that I'm about to impact the world.